Welcome to Gen Z Hoops, the Gen Z basketball, coaching, and sports business show. On this podcast, you'll learn from professional players, coaches, and executives from all over the world and see the court in a brand new way. And now, joining you courtside, your Gen Z host, John Hartofilis.
Welcome to a special edition live episode of Gen Z Hoops. Here on New Year's Eve, celebrating our 365th episode of 2021, the anniversary of Gen Z Hoops, coming up tomorrow. I'm really excited for this, and this has been an episode I've been planning for a while. I'm joined here by my father, Michael Hartofilis, and I'm really, you can stop blushing now. I've been really wanting to do this for a while. I originally asked you if I could interview you. That's what I originally asked you, and you said no to that. You put a stop to that months ago. But you're letting me now. We're going to turn the tables on this one. My dad's going to interview me, and we're going to talk about kind of the origin of Gen Z Hoops, some of the backstory of basketball. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really happy we're doing this one. We have 3 camera setups, and I can't neglect to mention how well dressed you are, being that it's New Year's Eve. You always wear your tux on New Year's Eve, so you really kept it classy for this episode. I'm in my Knicks jacket with the MSG logo. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, Dad, thanks so much for joining me.
Well, it's my pleasure. I mean, I'm very excited to be here. I'm glad you asked me to do it with this type of format. I'm going to call you Yanni because that's what I'm used to calling you, even though your fans know you as John. But I'm very excited about this, and I'm glad that you decided to do it in this type of format where I'm going to actually be interviewing you.
So what do you have for me? What do you have for me to start off this amazing show?
Why don't you start off by telling all your listeners how it is that you developed such a passion for basketball?
Definitely. So, the way I started off with this passion for basketball was back when I was 11 years old. You might remember it. So that's kind of why I should also mention the reason why I picked you to interview me is because no one knows me better than my dad. Right? No one knows better than my best friend and my father, who's been here at every step of the way. So none of the listeners, none of my even closest friends, were there when I was 11 years old, and I first tried out for the Goya basketball team here in Astoria at our local church. And I wasn't very good at first. I didn't make a lot of the first teams I tried out on. You actually, I remember back in the 5th grade would drive me every Saturday morning, or was it Sunday mornings to Big Apple basketball? Was it both? No, it wasn't both. It was both. I quickly forget, but you would take me out to the Big Apple basketball. It was like the way we started every morning, and I would be playing basketball, and I was really bad at first. Like, I have to make sure I stress that. But that's kind of where the passion started, because I would see myself getting better as time went on. And I really had a passion for it, and even though I didn't play very much or was cut from a lot of teams, it was something I was really passionate about. And the reason everyone always asks why these jerseys are up here, most people don't have their high school jerseys up, but for me, I was cut from the freshman, JV, and varsity teams at Xavier High School. Now I coach there, so I made it as a senior. It meant a little bit extra to me. So this actually is the list from senior year. Same thing, Coach William kind of gave it to me, same day, his name and everything. There's parts of this list that kind of really stick out to me, and that's a big part of who I am. And that's why that's up.
I have to tell you, Yanni, when we first started watching you play basketball, we just thought it would be something that you were interested in, but that we didn't know that you'd have such a passion for it. In fact, we didn't think you were playing very well when you first started, like you said.
I'm getting violent on my own podcast.
Well,
I love it.
And we saw that you were getting better, and we saw how determined you were. So we found that fascinating, and I'm so glad that you pursued it, because watching you play basketball, even at Xavier, was a pleasure. Why don't you explain to your viewers the process you went through at Xavier High School and how you achieved making the varsity team?
Oh, thank you, Dan. It's definitely a pretty long story, but I'll try to make it brief because you know all the details already.
And they're fascinating, and I think that young viewers out there listening to you would be able to relate, or they'd want to know what your experiences were.
Definitely. So when I was a freshman at Xavier, I didn't really understand. I thought I was much better than I was, like everyone else. 100 kids try for the freshman team, 100 people think they can make it. There's only 12 to 15 spots. And that being said, right, there's a big difference in the gap between kids that have been playing for years and guys like me that were new to the game, didn't really understand a lot of the key concepts, hadn't played on AAU teams. So I was the first cut, and I was heartbroken. I was devastated. I thought I was going to make it. I thought I'd be playing. I thought I'd be starting. Because in your head, right, that's what you think at 14 years old, and that's what people, they'd be overestimating themselves and not understanding, how good am I at what I do. So that was pretty devastating for me. Freshman year was a little bit rocky, but sophomore year, after again thinking I was really good and getting cut right at the start of the year, I joined the track team. That was a decision I made. I remember you and Mom were very supportive of me. You really pushed me to do it because you said, be part of a team, get part of that experience. And that track really is something I don't talk about enough a lot because this is a basketball show. But that changed my life completely because it put me as part of a team and allowed me to meet other people. And at first I wasn't really good at track. You were at my first meet ever at Oh my God, up at the Armory on 156.
That's right.
Where is that? 156th Street, 158th Street. And I ran the 200-meter dash. I had no idea what 200-meter dash was. I didn't know how long 200 meters was. One lap around the track. I ended up finding that out. And I ran 32.6. Now 32.6 is slower than a lot of throwers who are the kind of bigger guys. People that were brand new. I was maybe the slowest kid on the whole track. And maybe there was one or two guys slower than me. So I tried high jump too, and I cleared 4'8" or 4'10" at the time. And I thought that was like groundbreaking. I was like, wow, I'm jumping over. This is so tall. Now little did I know that wasn't enough to even place or even compete at a lot of meets. But I was like, oh, 4'8". There are people that are no taller than 4'8", let alone the other guys at Xavier were going over 6 foot, 6'2", 6'4". So it's kind of crazy thing about that sport. I learned a lot about how the human body works and movement and all that stuff in track, and that really gave me my foundation for what ended up eventually being me making the basketball team. So I did that my sophomore year. It was really slow. By the end of the year, I was running 28 flat, which was a huge deal for me because that obviously I cut off 4.5 seconds off my 200 time, which is unheard of. The 28 got me into striking range of varsity, which was a pipe dream at the beginning of the year. And then of course junior year starts. I worked really hard over the summer, got it down to 26 flat. Again, got cut from the varsity team, but this time I actually made it to pass first cuts. And this was, once you get cut from the JV team, it's kind of over. You're like, what? How do I compete with these guys when they're seniors? Like we had a guy, Malik Fisher, who was 6'4", 225. Just now he's the defensive player of the year at Villanova. Like talk about a guy that's a unit or a tank. Like he's a big boy. And how do I compete with a guy like him when he's a senior, I'm a junior, and what am I gonna do? That was really obviously hard. It was a lot of people gave up. Freshman year, 100 kids try out, if not more, 110, 120. By JV, 40 kids try out, or 50, because a lot of people pick other sports or realize it's not in the cards for them. By varsity level, which now I'm coaching now, it's 15 to 20 kids try out. That's almost a team. It's the couple kids, it's the couple JV guys that don't make the cut. I was one of those guys that was one of those 20 that tried out, and I made it past the first round, and I was like, wow, I actually, I'm the only person that is coming back and trying again for everyone was looking at me like that was crazy. Why are you trying out again? But I actually showed them something because in the sprints I was keeping up with guys like Malik, all these big time seniors, and they realized, wow, this guy he's gotten better. Let's bring him back.
Most young people, after having been cut so many times, would have been so discouraged they wouldn't have pursued it even further. So you had determination and you had stamina. What advice would you give to the young listeners out there who want to make the varsity team or want to make their school basketball team and don't seem to be making the cut at the very beginning?
I think the word to describe it as resiliency. It's getting knocked down and not staying down. That was a big part of it because a lot of guys, right? Everyone stays down after you get cut from the JV team at that point. What's the point of making varsity? It's kind of over for you. A lot of basketball careers die at those JV tryouts. And I don't want to be that. Even if I didn't make it, I wanted to make sure that if I get cut, I did my absolute best to make it, as opposed to what if I tried. Like if I just gave up and I'm not gonna try next year. Like there's no point in me trying out. That's pretty scary thought of the regret I'd have of not having all of what I have now, coaching, all this stuff.
But do you think it's because you had the passion for it?
Yes, it is the passion for it, but it was more. It was a thing that superseded basketball. It was more so a thing for my entire life. So this was a drive. This was a desire not to quit. That yes, it's tied into my passion with basketball, but it's something I would bring to anything to the table. Let's say basketball didn't exist, I'd still have that force in me. It would just be directed towards something else, and it'd be something that I can put towards something else. Whether it's like having a belief of doing something. Basketball is a big part of it, and that's what fuels me, now. But let's say it was anything else I put my mind to. I know that it's a characteristic in me that I could kind of apply to anything.
With everything you've been through, you're only 21 years old, all right? So you're relatively young compared to some of your peers. But with everything you've been through, what role would you say your parents played in it?
Wow, you're really trying to get that shout out right here on JV. So you guys played a huge role in it because even though you didn't understand basketball,
well, that's true.
Yeah, even though you guys didn't know the game, you guys still knew that I had a passion for it. You guys could easily, I know, like, right, with your experience, right, you want to be an actor growing up, and our grandparents didn't like that for you.
Do we need to put that into this
show? Of course,
that's
a big part of you and your personality and why you're such a good host, because you had that passion for the arts and for being an actor. And that was something you really wanted to do, and because of the times and because of the way people understood, what the industry you wanted to get into, the entertainment industry, they didn't want that to happen for you. Even though you didn't understand basketball, and my grandparents now still think that I play basketball because I tell them that when I say I work for the Knicks or that I do this, they're like, oh, you play basketball, and it's still not the case. you guys know how much this means to me, and you guys are more than willing to bend over backwards to make this dream for me a reality. So it's something that, I mean, me going to Vegas, right, and spending 2 weeks there, like, that's something that I need your seal of approval on, because I'm still dependent on you guys. I mean, you guys have been doing that for me, and it's something I'm really thankful
But to
for.
be fair, there were times when we didn't quite understand your resilience and your passion for it, and
Please go ahead to bring those up.
well, no, there were instances where our vacations were interrupted, and we had to send you back from Europe by yourself because you needed to practice and work out, and you insisted on leaving the family
I was very
vacation.
adamant about that.
We allowed you to do that, but that was stuff that caused a little stress in the family. But we still got through it.
I was in the, so in this pod, and Gen Z Hoops, we always keep it real. We always tell the full story. So that story was one I was going to gloss over, but it is one that's very important about my mentality, my mindset, because we went to Greece, and my whole thing was, I can't be there for the whole summer. It just isn't in the cards for me to be there and be away from home, from Coach George, who was incredibly transformed me and my body that summer. There were so many things I needed to be home for, and the mentality for when you're on vacation, you're on vacation. There's no okay, let's take a break for vacation for the quick workout. Like maybe actually I can keep you in shape, but I needed it to completely transform myself to make my dreams a reality. So yes, you guys weren't the biggest fans of the move I made that summer and come back from Greece early, and everyone listening is like, if I was in Greece right now, I'd stay in Greece. And sure, everyone wants to be in Greece right now, but I knew I had to come back home for a specific purpose. I knew exactly why I wanted to do it. It wasn't because I came home just to hang around and watch Netflix. I came home for a purpose and a drive and a good reason.
And you did do that.
And I
we
did.
Understood it after you did it.
I did end up making the team, and that was. And even if I didn't though, that decision to me still would have been. If I had stayed in Greece, it would have been something that would have gnawed at me. Like, you know what if you had gone back? What if you had worked out a little bit more? What if you had done those drills? What if you weren't partying up in Greece and living it up? Like, those are things that it's all about living life with having no regrets. That's the biggest thing. And when people say, you do this podcast, how great is that? And I try to help people start their own shows. And either they don't, or there's always an excuse. And that's something I didn't want to happen for myself, because I wanted to make sure that, I don't want to think about what if I did this show and went all in on it. But there was a crossroads with Gen Z Hoops where, not even Gen Z Hoops, there was Big Fellas Basketball at the time. And, why am I doing this? Like, I'm saying I have a podcast, but I don't really have a podcast. I'm not really serious about this. So the decision was I had to go all in or all out, because I can't keep on saying, I'm going to do an episode every once in a while and let's see what happens. So I went all in and I stuck to a schedule and I sent out hundreds of LinkedIn messages, and that's kind of what happened. But if I didn't have that fork in the road moment where I said I'm going all in or all out, and I just stayed in that limbo or gone all out, I'd be in this moment right now saying, what if I started a show at the start of COVID, like so many others?
How did you transfer from your passion for basketball into production, like producing and doing your podcast?
Yeah.
That seems to be something you've developed a great deal right now with these podcasts. I mean, you've really made a brand out of it. So how is it that you transferred your passion for basketball into the production side of it?
So that actually happened when my basketball career ended at Stevens Institute of Technology. I was a freshman there, and my whole thing was, I did this, I worked really hard at this, and I made the team at Xavier, and I now had confidence that I was good at basketball. Now it's time, senior year was over, it's time to make it to the next level. Let me try to play at the college level. And when we got on the visit, they said there was a walk-on spot. I was super excited to work for it, because a walk-on, what a beautiful word. Like, that's exactly what I'm all about. Like, that idea of not being highly touted and proving people wrong and doing all that stuff, and that's something I really wanted. I went to every workout for 2 to 3 months with the Stevens team. They had 3 days of tryouts. At the end of the tryouts, they said they weren't going to take anyone. They weren't taking any walk-ons that year. It was crushing for me for about 6 hours. And then you were there, so I was really upset that day. I called you guys, and you guys came and took me out to dinner at Stevens over there in Hoboken. And we went out to dinner, and we get in the car to go back. You guys drove me back to my dorm. And as I'm getting out of the car, Coach McGrain, who I told before, I texted earlier in the day that I had gotten cut, responded to me, of course, giving me a big pep talk and talking about how this is the thing. These are the moments that make men who they are. Then followed up by saying, "We'd love to have you coach our freshman team," which is something I wasn't expecting. And that really, it's the funniest story of like going from the lowest of lows to the highest of highs, because now I got to be at Xavier again.
Well, and that goes to show you, when one door closes, another door opens.
Exactly. And I still, though, because you asked me about the transition from playing to coaching and to media and broadcasting, I still struggled with am I giving up on playing? And the short answer was no, because I was just redirecting that white hot focus to something else. If I turn that white hot focus down, or turn the nozzle down on that, and just been coasting, that would have been giving up. But instead of giving up, I just rerouted. And the new chapter was, how can I be the best coach I could be? How can I be the best? Just like there's another side of basketball I've been playing. Playing's fun, but what I actually was doing at Xavier was just really fulfilling to me. It was a different chapter. It was a different way to channel my passion for it, and it's also led to all this other stuff. Because if I had been playing at Steve, it would have been fun. I would have had more of a college experience. But instead, I rerouted it and went from playing to this entire new world, which 400 plus episodes later, I'm feeling pretty good about that call.
So it's 400 episodes?
So this is episode 365 of Gen Z Hoops, but we can't forget to add the 50 episodes of Big Fellas Basketball on top of it, because I started back from one. It was kind of season 2. So in total, we're at 415 episodes.
And what could you just tell us, or tell me, the different guests that you've had on your podcast?
Oh, thank God you didn't ask me to pick my favorite, because that is always a very difficult thing. I can never pick.
That's
one.
my next question.
Oh my God. So I'll get that out of the way. My favorite guest, and actually let me say all of them first. So I'm gonna say the favorite guest. It's a little bit easier for the guest that almost made the cut to take in. When you talk about the range of guests, I came into this when I said I'm gonna do this podcast. I wanted to get guests from all over, from every side of the industry. So at first, it's actually funny. When I first started this, I wanted guests so badly. I needed guests so badly because no one was saying yes to me. I was reaching out to like golf coaches and football trainers and accounting, like literally everything. I just wanted, if you were on LinkedIn, I was like, please come on my show. And of course, no one from those professions responded. But I eventually got Coleman Ayers, a trainer out of Miami, Florida, who's only a year older than me. But he was always a role model to me, because he was always kind of doing this entrepreneurial stuff as a 16-year-old. It took me a little bit longer. It took me until I was 19, 20 years old to do this stuff. He was doing it at 15, 16, and I was watching his videos at 15, 16. I was even younger than him, and I thought he was a grown man. I thought he was like 30 years old. Because look at this guy, really doing this basketball stuff right. Like, he's doing this training stuff. This is what he's passionate about. This is what I'm passionate about. Podcasting and coaching, all that stuff. He was really into training, and I sent him a message on LinkedIn. He responded in 20 minutes with his phone number saying, "Hit me up. Let's do this podcast." So he comes on the show, and to me, no one knew who he was. None of my friends knew who he was. My casual basketball watching friends or people that weren't basketball fans. But to me, he was a celebrity. To me, it was like, I got Coleman Ayers on. I got by any means basketball on. It actually came full circle this past October in Miami when I went to his conference, and he had all these big time trainers there, and I got to meet him in person. But that was the first moment where I realized, you know what, like, I could really do this. I could really get some big name people on, and they could be from all over. Like, he's a trainer. That's pretty specific in the basketball world. I can go even more granular than that. I've had some team security guards on the show. I've had some doctors on the show. I've had some scouts. I mean, you go wherever. But it's kind of the more broad terms. I mean, the big, in terms of executives, GMs like Tommy Shepard, of the Washington Wizards, Nick Lagis of the Mexico City Capitanes, from the G League team, Brian Levy, the ex-GM of the Fort Wayne Mad Ants. Oh man, we go to the coaching side of things. You have Coach Greg Buckner, who I went to his camp in Kentucky over the summer. That was a great experience. And from there, I got Darius Garland, point guard of the Cavaliers, on the show. That was a huge thing for the show, because he's about to be an all-star this year. You guys watch. Let me talk into the camera like this. Darius Garland will be an all-star this year. I can guarantee it. He's a really great guy. He's also the first ever 2000 baby to play in the NBA. Just when he got drafted, he was the first player to actually play an NBA game. So talk about Gen Z right there. That was a really cool episode with him. A couple other people, whether it's coaches, a lot of G League coaches that have been great to me. I mean, there's literally hundreds of them to mention, so many of them. But my favorite, I'll tell you my favorite, because I know you're gonna ask me. Is Albert Hall, the co-founder of Summer. The reason it's Albert Hall is because the story of how he got on the show is incredible, and what he's done for me since then has been insurmountable, and he's been great. And just the way that episode happened, in terms of, it was live like this. It was in a studio, a little bit more high tech and set than this one. This studio was kind of makeshift, but we're making it work. He was the co-founder of Summerly. He was a big part of Sports Business Classroom, and I got him socks. Right, everyone, if you're listening to this episode, you know about my socks.
Do you have a pair of those socks that you give to all your guests?
I've got a closet full of them behind you, but
all right.
I mean, you've had those for a while. I can't give them to you on camera and pretend like it's the first time, because you've had multiple pairs of socks for a long time.
And they're very comfortable socks, by the way.
Hey, I mean, that's how we do it here. But with the socks, I gave him his socks, and I'd never met him before. So it's kind of weird to give someone socks when you don't know them. But for me, it was, I was in part of your program. This is something I do for all my guests, for people that, that I look up to. Here's a pair of socks. And it's kind of like my way of saying thank you for putting together SBC. And I give it to him, and he was talking to someone. I kind of interrupted him. He stopped talking to them and lost his mind about the socks. He thought they were the coolest thing ever. And I later found out from other people that he's a big thank you note guy, big, handwritten thank you note guy. But this was, of course, the next level. He'd never seen this. So he goes, "This is incredible. Tell me about your show. Tell me about Gen Z Hoops." And I'm giving him the whole elevator pitch from Assembly about Gen Z Hoops and what I'm doing and the number of episodes and all that stuff. And he stops and he's like, "You got to do your show in the studio right here." He's like, "You got to have me on. I want to come on the show." And I was like, Mr. Hall, I'd love to have you on. He's like, you can call me Albert, but like, let's do it in the studio. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. So he's like, tomorrow, get here before the arena opens at 10 a.m. and we'll do the episode. So I showed up. They called him up. He came upstairs. He sat down. We did the episode. And at the end of the episode, he kind of played your role just now. He turned it on me. So I was trying to end the show because I was like, 15 minutes. That's it's pretty appropriate. I don't want to take too much of Albert's time. Like he's running around at Summer. He's running the show. At 15 minutes, I cut the show, or at least I was trying to wrap up. I said, thank you so much for coming on. He said, John, hold up. He's like, I need to know more about you. Let's make this a back and forth. And he asked me questions about Gen Z hoops. So he played he was the first person to kind of interview me. You're doing the full thing. You're doing the whole, you got dressed up in a suit and tie like no one else. But that episode stood out to me because of that. And then afterwards, Albert got me on the no trade clause team. So that's been a huge thing for me, learning about the salary cap and how teams actually work and the money side of it and the business side of the game. That's been eye-opening. We just did the GM Academy with 6 general managers, literally 6 general managers, one of them being Tommy Shepard, the GM of the Wizards, who I'd had on my show before. He came to SVC and he remembered me, which was really cool. I gave him socks and everything. But those were moments that people like Albert Hall really took a chance on me. It's tough to get people like that to take a chance on you. People at that level that have everyone reaching out to them asking for a job. But they knew I never asked Albert for a job or Tommy for a job or any of those guys to help me out before first saying, let me offer you something coming on my show. Not a lot of people listen to this show, but the people that do listen to this show, like the people watching right now, I want to thank you guys. Let me look into the camera right here, actually. I want to thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart because the people that watch the show are special because number one, you're supporting me and you take a liking to what a young man's doing, trying to get into the industry, but also the people that watch the show, I'm very proud to say a lot of them are coaches in the G League, executives in the G League, and they tell me to listen to my show. Now, I'd rather have one Albert Hall listen to my show than a million random people that don't really know me, that don't that they listen to it because they like the guests I have on. But Albert listens to it, or the people that someone listen to it because they like me and they believe in what I'm doing and the message I'm trying to send out about young people making a difference in sports. So that's a big thing. He really taught me in terms of the confidence that like people at that level, like that there's the guests that I have fun with, the content creators, the coaches. But the people at that level, he's a decision maker in the NBA. He can hire people in a heartbeat. He talks to people that can hire people in a heartbeat, and he looks at what I'm doing and says, I like that. And that was the first time that I realized that. And whether it's him coming on the show and doing it in person, that is something that I'll never forget.
Well, look, I can tell you something as your father. Just watching you talk so much about your experiences and what you want to do with your podcast, just looking at the energy going through you when you're talking, I know that this is the passion you have, and I hope you continue it and you continue following your passion. And I hope all your listeners out there, when they see the passion that you have, will follow the passions that they have. Because of the passion that you have for basketball and this whole environment, you work 24/7. I've seen you work 24/7, so I'm proud of you, and your mother's proud of you too. What are you looking forward to? What else do you want to do? I mean, where do you see yourself going?
So one thing that you've been keeping me honest about is the book. I mean, I know I mentioned this to you last year, and that's one thing I haven't started because of all this, everything else is taking priority in the podcast and everything else, but we've spoken before about doing a book. The details aren't ironed out yet. There's a lot to think about.
Well, you still got a lot more living to do before you
That's it. There's a lot of living left to do. But I mean, this last year, there's enough experiences, I think, just in summer league to write. There's so much, at least to me, that I've gone through that I think a lot of the young people will go through, that I think it's important to have that out there. And it's something I really want to do is write that book and put those ideas out there into the world.
Well, I think that's very important because your experiences, I'm sure a lot of young people can relate to it. And it would inspire them because what you've been doing is very inspirational. It's inspirational to me just to watch what you've been doing.
Well, so you mentioned that you kind of watching. I'll talk more about what I'm going to do later. But when did you and Mom? I'm going to turn it on you. I'm pulling Albert Hall and I'm turning it on you, and now I'm interviewing you. When did you and Mom realize, from the first to 5 episodes, of course, like, oh, what's he doing up there in his room with a microphone? Till when it was like, oh wow, like he's really serious about this.
I realized it when you started giving out the socks.
Was that really it?
Yeah, when you started giving out the socks, I thought, all right, this is a brand he's building.
Well, that's when you were pushing it to get the LLC and all that stuff, and you really were on top of that. I remember that. That's kind of when I gave out the socks. You really pulled me to the side, and you were like, "Hey, it's time to really go full throttle on this and do something about it." But no, that is actually a really good idea. When the socks came, and for me, it was. But way before that, for me, it was the Coleman Ayers story, even when Tommy Shepard came on the gym of the Wizards. But once you guys could feel it.
Well, the material is wonderful.
Yeah, the material of the socks is wonderful, right? So once you could feel it, you were like, you know what, like he is serious about this. Like this is.
And just so everybody knows, they're just not regular socks. They're socks with every guest's photograph on it, and it's got the Gen Z Hoops logo and colors on it. They're wonderful.
Shout out hoopswag.com and Brendan Agronoff for putting the socks together. He's the guy really making the moves with the custom sock making company. But Brendan's awesome. He came to me and said, John, I want to put your brand on my socks. I was like, I have a brand? He goes, yeah, you have a brand. He's like, you have X amount of episodes. This was back, I think, when at like 150-ish. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's put faces on socks. Let's send them to your guests. And there's more merch coming. Brendan mainly does socks, but there's some canvases he's thinking about. There's a lot of stuff he's got cooking up. So there's more merch coming. Some of the guests that have your socks, they're like, you know what? And that's kind of it. Like, this is the last Gen Z gear I'm going to have. Wrong. Right? You're going to have there's a lot more gear where that came from. It's coming your way soon, Summer League 2022. And like you said, what am I looking forward to? Summer League 2022 is a big one. I can't wait to be there with the NTC team. Guys that now are like really my best friends or my brothers kind of in the basketball world. And like you've never met them. You will hopefully soon. Like you haven't met a lot of my friends that are virtual.
Well, Yanni, what do you see in your future now?
So, oh man, I was about to jump at like the next month, but I know you're asking about the big picture. I mean, look, what I think is so interesting that I think all young people have to listen to is that, I mean, I can mess up 10 more times and be fine. I can go full force into refereeing, which is something I got my certification for just recently, and then it doesn't work out in a year, and I pivot, and I'm still gonna be okay. Nothing bad's gonna happen. Like, sure, would it be better to have it all straight in a straight line? Yes, but I can mess up and be fine, and you can mess up and be fine too. I think that's very important to say. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. The plan doesn't have to be perfect. Plan B's work all the time. You can always pivot. That being said, I've got 5 things I'm really looking forward to doing. One of the 5. Number 1, I could stay at MSG next year. I think that'd be a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed my time there so far. That'd be great if they have me back. I'd love to do it. If not, I've thought about grad school. That could be a nice chapter to further my education, being a GA somewhere. A lot of schools that I'm thinking about and that I think would be great fits. Staying in the New York City area. A third thing would be maybe I go on at Xavier, and I really, I stay there, like it keeps me in the city for another year. That could be really cool. Number 4 could be something with on the team side. Maybe one of my guests with a team reaches out to me and says, we need one of these skill sets that you have, that you've been proving that you can do, whether it's my stuff at Xavier, the coaching, whether it's the video stuff I can do with the show and the video analysis I've done with basketball, obviously through coaching. Maybe it's something like that. Or maybe it's something in the broadcasting world. It's something I never thought I'd be doing. I never thought I'd have a mic in my hand because I was always scared and camera shy and couldn't give presentations. And now at school, the way I kind of make this all work with school is that when it comes to presentation time, I tell my classmates, I say, I'll do the presentation. I mean, that's it. And they're like, okay, because they don't want to do the presentation. So they're like, okay, as long as you do the presentation, you got it, you're good, you did your work for this project. So I show up, I give my 10-minute presentation, I kind of really go out there and bring a lot of energy. Everyone loves it, and that's my contribution. That's what I do. So maybe it's the media world, maybe it's the broadcasting world. Whichever one of those 5 things that I do, I know I'll be happy doing it because the 1, it revolves around basketball. Number 2, it keeps me in New York. Except for number 4, the team one. Most of them keep me in New York with my family, which is something I'm very I really want to do if I can. I'm not leaving you guys intentionally nowhere.
Well, what you just described sounds like that's where you're looking at in the next few years. Where do you see yourself 20, 25 years from now?
Well, okay, I thought you were about to go a little further. Like I still don't know tomorrow we're doing for New Year's. I don't know where we're going. I don't know if we're staying home. I don't know where we're going. Or if Monday, if I'm going to work, or if our next, I don't know if I'm going game by game. If our next Xavier game might be canceled. Well, if all these COVID.
Well, that's fine. But where do you see the ultimate goal being? Do you have an ultimate goal, or do you're just going seizing on opportunities that come in front of you?
So my baseline goal, no matter what, and I know I'll achieve it, is to wake up every day thinking about basketball. I know that if I put my all in from here on out, I will wake up every day, and the only thing I'll think about is basketball. No matter what, it doesn't matter what the job title is. I wake up in the morning and I think to myself, I have this guy who's 35 and he's the GM of this team at 1 o'clock, and I have this other young lady who's 24 and coaching it. Like, how cool is this? Like, all these different, this guy's scouting, this person's a doctor, this person's insert players here's physician. I don't know. Like, it's all these different people that it excites me every day. No matter what happens, when I wake up in the morning, I'm doing this. Or I have Xavier practice, or I have MSG. That's for me right now. And my goal no matter what is to keep that theme of my life going, where I wake up in the morning and I'm excited about what I have next.
So you don't consider it work?
Never. But
then you're going to be a very happy person.
Thank you. But at the same time, though, in terms of really looking out into the future and what that long-term goal is, I would have to think that it has to revolve around something on the ops side of things. When it comes to, of course, everyone wants to be a decision maker, and everyone is quick to yell out GM. I want to be a GM. I want to make trades. Now, I think it's a little bit immature to say, to just blanket statement at 21 years old, say I want to be a GM when I've never done that before. GM Academy was a great way to figure out what a GM does, and that's, the thing that SBC really showed me how to do. But even then, like, I've never been in that spot. I've done practice rounds of it, I've done simulations, but I've never had to tell someone we're trading you. I've practiced it, I've watched movies about it like Moneyball, but I've never done it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I like that. I've never traveled and been, I've never had to do those responsibilities. So that's something I can't pinpoint and say I know what I like to do, or if I like the the actual work side of it in terms of basketball. Like obviously I love the basketball side of it, but maybe the actual way of doing the basketball isn't as much fun. With a director of ops, I'm very organized. Everything's in the everything's in the same spot. Everything's very organized and meticulous. That's kind of the person I am, and whether it's being an inbox zero or always responding to every text message right away, I'm very on top of things, and that's kind of my personality. I'm really very rarely do things ever slip by because I'm always doing multiple things at once, and that might be when it maybe happens. Like you tell me to take the trash out, and I might be a little late on that, but always get to it at some point. But that being said, something in the ops side of things is more my style. Something where I'm really hands-on with making decisions that impact the team. And I mean this year, whether it's for Xavier, whether it's making some of those administrative decicies that I never got to make before, that's made me think that maybe that's what's in the cards for me is being in that seat where that's what I'm doing.
Why don't you tell us, Yanni, what it was like, what it's like to be a varsity coach? How is it relating to the young kids?
So it's funny because to me they're not that young anymore because they used to be younger. They used to be freshmen. A lot of these guys, I had them when they were freshmen. I was the freshman coach when they were freshmen, and I was a freshman in college. Now I'm a senior in college. They're seniors in high school, and I'm their coach again 4 years later. That's been something that means a lot to me because watching them grow up, watching them improve, watching them mature, and really, watching them from point A to point B of their high school basketball journey has been very fulfilling to me. But my role's been the same. My role, I'm the young coach. I'm an assistant. I'm not, up there screaming and yelling and making those big time decisions that Coach McGrain, who's a 30-year Hall of Famer, does. I'm the guy that's on the bench that when they get subbed out and they're not, feeling too well, or they're not playing too well, or they're, it's practice and they're having a really bad day and things are going wrong at home, they know they can come talk to me because I've been in their shoes before. Maybe not their, I don't know, I don't know I've never been in everyone's situation, but I'm close enough to where I can relate to them in ways that other coaches can't.
You think because of your age, you can relate to them better than the other coaches?
That's what Gen Z is all about. It's the idea that like there's being young. It sounds like a very harsh word to say, but it's a weapon. Being young is a tool that like you only have for such a limited amount of time. You can have a lot of these skill sets you have. They could be lifelong tools. Age is one that has an expiration date on it. It depends on the person more than the age. But my whole thing is that age shouldn't be a requirement to coach. Age shouldn't be a requirement to be a GM. Age shouldn't be a requirement. If you're good enough at the job and you've proven you can do it and you have the skill sets, you should be able to skip that line and kind of skip the status quo and skip the way we always do it. There's no reason why age should be a cutoff or age should be a limiting factor in anything. If anything, it should be seen as a positive, especially with youth, because there's so much room to grow. I'd rather, instead of experience, in terms of years, I would look at what you experienced in those years and determining how qualified someone is, or determining who they are, what they can handle.
Well, have you had situations where, because of your age and your youth, you weren't being taken seriously?
Thankfully not, because I'm around I put myself around smart people that don't make those mistakes. But I know that that's the reality, right? Like when you're younger, you get looked over. And I'm sure, right, even in my situation, even though I'm around smart people, I'm still looked at a little differently because I'm younger. It's just natural. It's just human nature. That's just how it is. I'm not saying I do everything right. Of course, I make I make mistakes for being 19 years old. There are times where the bus runs out of gas or stuff like that happens, and you're laughing because that did actually happen to me once. And in my defense, and just a little bit aside, this could be the bloopers reel. In my defense, there's a lot of buttons on the bus, so it was tough to see it. But then again, right, those are the mistakes. Sure, you make those when you're young, and that happens, and people, the young guy, of course he messed up. And that might happen. But at the end of the day, when it comes time to showing out, like the things that are non-negotiable, young people are looked at as being a little more mature. So maybe you might show up a little late because you're the young guy. Maybe that's never been my case. If I mess up, it's because I'm doing too much and I'm overextending myself. It's never been an effort thing. So as long as if you're young and you show that effort, because that's the thing that, he's young, he's lazy, millennials this, millennials that, and that's why we're not millennials, we're Gen Z. Gen Z operates a little bit differently. That's what I'm trying to prove here with this show, is that there's no age limit to doing 400 episodes. Who's stopping me? Who's going to tell me you can't make 400 episodes because you're 21 years old? No one. Or there's guys that I've had on my show, Sahil Middle, who was 16 when I had him on the show, and he interns for the Windy City Bulls, interviews G League players. I've been really, I'm so proud of him from afar, watching what he does, and we talk every once in a while to kind of see what's next for both of us, because being this young, things are changing on a consistent basis. But he's gonna be a star in the league and in this industry, because he understands. And I told him, and he knew before I met him, but he understands that age is not going to limit him from chasing his wildest dreams. So that's something that I'm very passionate about, because it's very easy to say. That's something I'll worry about in 10 years because that's when I'm going to be ready for it. Why can't you be ready for it now? Why can't you get yourself to that level now?
Now that you're working as an intern for Madison Square Garden, tell us what that's like.
So I've been at MSG for about 3 full months now. I started October 4th of this year, right after I came back from Miami, actually, the culminators and all that stuff. I literally landed the night before and then started MSG the next day. I'm doing productions and programming. I'm a student associate. That's the word for interns at MSG. Basically, I've been kind of have my hands in everything, whether it's stuff with the Knicks and Rangers, which are my bread and butter is obviously the Knicks, to shoot I did this morning with the Islanders over at UBS Arena, like stuff like that, where it's a little bit different from what I'm used to. I'm not used to doing hockey. I'm not used to, we do some football stuff for the Giants that people don't even know about. We have lacrosse stuff. We have, a lot. MSG Networks is very wide ranging. Obviously, my bread and butter is basketball. That's what I'm passionate about. That's what I'm, around. And that's the Knicks games I go to and all that stuff that everyone sees on social media. But really, MSG it's shattered my expectations. I knew I'm like, oh wow, it's my first corporate job. I'm gonna really learn what that's like, and I have. I've learned what the corporate world's like, but on top of that, I've learned how to relate with people in that kind of environment way faster than I ever thought I would. I thought it'd be a much harder process. I thought they wouldn't take me seriously because I was just an intern. But a lot of these people at MSG, maybe it's because of the socks. I gave them socks for Christmas, and maybe that's why they're warming up.
Those socks are great.
The socks change everything. But they really have taken a liking to me in ways that I didn't expect they would. Yeah, I'm looked at in many ways as more than an intern in some cases, just because of the personality I bring to the table and the way I try to present myself. And that's what I try to do is to showcase that I'm ready for this next year. When they asked me to serve as the interim PA because they couldn't find a PA for the shoot this morning, I said I'll do it. And technically I'm not supposed to do that because I'm not an intern. I'm not a PA or a freelance PA. But I served that role anyway because that's what it was needed of me. That's how I could prove that I was ready for my next opportunity. And I took it, and it was a lot of fun today.
All right, with everything you've said so far, I mean, we've been talking for quite some time now. I'm going to ask you because I want to know the answer to it. Do you have any leisure time?
Have you ever seen me take a break?
Well, that's why I'm asking you the question.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, so
what do you do to relax?
You're wondering if once you go to sleep, I take a time break, and I still really don't. The leisure time comes when I've kind of found leisure in what I'm doing. I find what I'm doing as so much fun and so relaxing and so enjoyable that it's my version of Netflix before I go to bed. It's crazy. But podcasting and content creation and coaching is like, and the fact that it can be work, the fact that when I'm at MSG, like when I was in high school, right, and class was getting boring, and I would open up a basketball game or I'd watch film for Xavier, like that was, I had to be careful. Like if someone came behind me, if a teacher saw me, I'd get in trouble, right? I get detention for what we call the jug. I get detention for having my laptop open and not being schoolwork. The fact that at MSG I can watch a Knicks game and it's encouraged. Like, oh, John's doing a great job. Look at John, he's doing his work. Like that is something that I've never could have imagined. So like the fact that that's kind of looked at as like, if that's looked at as work, like the fun stuff, like come on, like that's the best. That's the best situation. So that's really the way I look at things. My leisure, my fun time is that my happy place is going through LinkedIn, sending out messages or responding to people, or when I get the ding and it's someone said to come on your show. Like, that gives me a true dopamine rush that no Netflix show or maybe extra sleep is very important, but then no TikTok could do for me.
Well, I'm glad you found your passion, because if you consider what you're doing leisure and not work, then you're the luckiest person. It's very few people who can say that. And the ones who are a success are the ones who don't consider their work to be work. All right, now you've traveled across the country.
It's always fun, and thank you for letting me do it.
Yeah, you've traveled across the country to many places. What tell us where you went and what kind of things you did? Because I know you've been to camps across the country and you've participated in them. What are some of the places you've been to?
So I was trying to count while you were talking, and I was having a little trouble with it. So we're thinking, let's go through the chronological order this summer. Of course, I was in New York, obviously, but Kentucky, then Milwaukee, then Las Vegas, Nevada, then Kansas, and then Chicago for a day with the connecting flight, all that mayhem. So 5 cities in 2.5 months. It was really awesome. I mean, obviously Kentucky, that was the craziest one. That was one of the craziest ones because that happened like 3 days before the camp started. I saw Coach Greg Buckner post on his Instagram story that he's doing a camp, and I texted him. I said, Coach, I saw you doing a camp. I'd love to help out. He calls me on the spot and said, John, if you want to come down, get your flight here. I'll take care of you from here. Just fly down here, meet. We'll get a driver to get you all the way up to Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and we'll be rolling. I said, Coach, I'm there. So I booked my flight. I went over there, not even thinking. Like, where am I going? I'm just taking this Cavs coach at his word because, I'm taking Coach Buckner at his word just because I've never met him before. He's came on my show. He's the coach of the Cavaliers, but I don't know him, really. I don't know the people that are going to be there. I don't know what's going to happen. And it was when I talk about learning experience, I've never been to that area of the country before, so I learned a lot culturally from that. All the people he had, like his coaches that were there, it was me, him, and all of it. And obviously, he's a coach he's an NBA coach. He was head coach actually for a few games last year. And all of his buddies that played in the NBA, that played with him at Clemson, that coached in the G League, that coached in the NBA with him, Darius Garland, who's about to be an NBA also, like all these people that were so high up, I was like, wow, like this is what it's like to, working with them on a daily, for 14, 15 hours a day, we do camp, and then we're hanging out eating, pizza, watching the playoffs at night. And they have the insight of, like, they were in the league. They know them. Like, Coach Buckner knew the guys that were on the court. Like, he had coached them before. He had seen them before. So that was an insight like no other, and that was a great experience, of course. From there, that man right there, Giannis, he's an inspiration to me like no other. You obviously saw since I was a kid. When he got drafted, it was like, oh, the Greek guy. Okay, he's in the league. Maybe he'll last a year. And then getting to meet him all these times, and now him being an MVP and a champion, and when I told you guys I'm like, hey, like I was watching Game 5 with my good friend Jesse K, who I actually haven't mentioned enough in the show. He's a big reason why I started the podcast. When I decided to go and watch for Game 6, I was watching Game 5 with him. It was a great ending, and I told him, I said, Jesse, if they win this game, we're booking flights to Milwaukee. So we had the thing open on AmexTravel.com. The final buzzer sounds. We hit confirm. Our tickets are set. You found out about it later. You were okay with it. Thank you for not making me refund my ticket because it was a very big impulse buy. But I flew over to Milwaukee, stayed in the district because it'd be too expensive to go inside. Really resonated with the people in Milwaukee, and that was a great time. So that was fun. And then Las Vegas, Nevada, and I can't talk about it enough. I met all my guests. I mean, it's funny. That's the one part of my story that was a huge part of my story that you really weren't there for because I'd be out of the arena at 11 o'clock at night and it was 2 o'clock in the morning here in New York. So like that was obviously really crazy and I really appreciate you and Mom giving me the green light for that. Obviously making a big investment to go to SBC and really chase that dream and meet all my guests in person. That was absurd, meeting 40 plus of my guests out of 100. All of them were there. Like that was wild, kind of meeting them all in person for the first time, giving out a lot of sucks were given out on that trip. And then I went to Kansas. That was off the recommendation of Matt Jones, another guest on my show. It was Crossroads Elite Invitational. A lot of guys that are ESPN top 10 guys were there. So all these youth players and all these elite high school players that you kind of see on Instagram mixtapes and stuff that I never realized, like, number one, how good these kids are. Number two, what they look like in person, like really seeing them and how they talk and how they move and how they interact with each other. That was eye-opening for me. And number three, like I interviewed all of them. Like it was really cool. I just sat there. I put myself in a corner with the camera I'm looking into right now on a tripod, my laptop sitting on a chair, and I just spoke to all of them. And they all loved it because it was their first time going to a show. A lot of these guys are going to be NBA lottery picks. They've had 5 or 6 lottery picks from the last 3 drafts all at that camp. They all came on my show at the start, so that was pretty cool. And then coming back from that, when you go to Wichita, Kansas, it's tough finding a return flight. So my flight got canceled originally. I ended up having to spend the night in Chicago. That wasn't fun at all. I can confirm that to you that was a very unpleasant experience, except for the fact, like of course the layover was annoying, that I got to go to the Michael Jordan statue. And this is for Bo Estes right here, if you're listening, Bo, which I know you are because you're a big supporter of the show and you're a big mentor to me in my broadcasting journey. It always comes back to MJ, always. So going to that Jordan statue was a big thing for me. That was a lot of fun. And yeah, those were my travels over the summer. And then of course so that's the 6th city, Miami in October for Culminators, meeting Drew Hanlon in person for the first time, meeting Coleman for the first time. So things like that, I was getting little tips that I took back to my coaching, took back to my training, took back to my life, my own personal life in general, and I really saw the results. So all those travels, sure, did it deplete my bank account? Did it take all my Xavier money? Yes. But at the end of the day, it really changed my career in ways that at the start of 2021 even, at the start of the summer, I had no idea I'd get to this point.
You've also traveled internationally, correct?
Oh, thank you. I almost see, it's crazy with all this stuff. I forget about Super League trip in Greece. I have to thank you, Mom, and the then Dean of Students at the time of Xavier High School, Mr. Jacobson, for allowing me to go on the trip. It's funny, like, you never realize like how much, as an administrator, as a coach, how much your decisions can change someone's life. If I'd been told no by the administrator at Xavier, my teachers, you can't go to Greece because you have to take your calculus final, I would never gone to Greece. I would never met James in Super League and done all that cool stuff and met Giannis all those times and met all my lifetime friends that I've made it from the trip. And that was really a big thing, part of confidence in terms of me making the team at Xavier because I got to get coached by a college coach over in Greece. I got to play with elite level varsity players and see what that was like in ways that I never did back home before that. I got to learn concepts and learn schemes and play in gyms that I never thought I'd get to play in. And I get the confidence that, like, I should be playing Xavier. I should be good enough. I should work hard enough for that. I should, be that. That's kind of what happened. So Super League, going to Greece twice a year, once in April for Super League, and then once in the summer for a week. Sorry about that, Dad. For family. That was very important for me, and it was a big part of my development to kind of go internationally and see basketball over there, play against kids over there. And actually, this is one thing I don't think I even told you about this one. I might maybe mention it in passing. My role for the trip after I was done playing was to coach. I also do a lot of media stuff, so I bring my camera, do all that cool stuff, and that was a big part of what I did there. But the big thing, just like it is at Xavier, is being relatable to people. The ones at Xavier, I feel like I'm touching lives there, which is great, but I've never seen it happen that fast. It's always a long process, and the stories are very long. This one's a quick one. First day we're in Greece. One of the news reporters, his son was playing on the trip with us. He's Greek news reporter, so he met up with us from Greece. The kid didn't speak any English. His name was Yanni, just like me. Spoke English decently well, but he was nervous because he's the one Greek kid on a trip full of all Americans. Doesn't speak the language fluently, so he's got a little bit of an accent. He thinks that all these kids are so mean. I've never played with Americans before. They're not gonna take me in. And literally on the bus, I sat next to him because my job was, I told James running the trip, I said, James, I'll coach, I'll do the media, I'll do all that stuff, but my main thing is I'm gonna make all these kids have a blast, and I'm gonna make them all best friends. So this kid's on the bus, and he's got his head down, he's listening, he's afraid to talk to people. I sat next to him and I told him, I said, look, you're gonna come with me, you're coming to my room tonight. I brought the Xbox for that reason. We're gonna play, we're gonna do a 2K tournament, you're gonna meet all the guys. And he's talking to me. I was the only person that spoke Greek. I was one of the few people on the trip, or one of the few younger people that could speak both Greek and English. So I was speaking to him in Greek, and he told me in Greek that I'm nervous to speak in English because I'm gonna get made fun of. My English isn't good enough. I said, yeah, trust me, we're gonna make it happen. And he trusted me, and that night he came over to the room, and he ended up the next day being the star of the trip because he didn't care about the language barrier. He would talk in English freely. Everyone thought everyone loved it. Everyone was laughing and joking, and like there were so many moments where he really felt accepted by everyone. He was really the star of the trip. Really, it was his trip, and we were all just on it with him. He broke someone's ankles in one of the games, and had some fun with it. Like really, that trip for him,
He broke someone's ankle?
Yeah, okay, Dad. So in
Had a lot
basketball,
of fun with it?
no. So in basketball, Dad, this is great. I'm so happy you asked that. So when you are dribbling, right, and you change directions quickly, and someone guesses wrong, they might fall.
Oh, I see.
So that's called breaking someone's ankle.
She goes to show you how much.
That was perfect. I got that on video. But that was great. That was quality content. But with him, right, he made a move. He scored, and he was he was just happy. He was playing very well. He was one of the better players. It turned out, right, like the first game he played terribly because he was all nervous. And then after that one night when he got to meet everyone and he came to the room, we played Xbox and we had that bonding time with the whole team. He was a monster the rest of the trip. He was a beast. He was one of the best players on the team, and that's those things that I hate to think it's all me. Oh, I did that. But that was one that I was very proud of, and I was like, you know what, like that's my superpower if I have one, is I can take someone and really make them trust me, and then really make them happier.
And you're going to do that again this year, correct? This coming year?
I'm hoping, I'm praying, God, if you're listening, please don't let the trip get canceled like it did the last 2 years because of COVID. 2020, 2021 were taken from us, and it was very upsetting, obviously, for the right reasons that we couldn't go on the trip. This year, we're set to go. Brian Walsh, who's a guest of this podcast, is going to be our head boys coach. I cannot wait for B. Walsh to...
Well,
stop turning me on.
Let me ask you something.
No, stop. No, I gotta
Oh,
call.
I'm sorry. Oh, this is fun.
Brian Walsh, who's the past guest of the show, episode 116, is actually coming on the show. He's a coach of the South Bay Lakers. He's joining us in Greece. Coach James McCullough, who used to coach at Delphi, will be there. Coach Christina Rady from Lehigh, who's the head women's coach. We're talking about Gen Z. Christina's, I think, 24, 25, and she's the head varsity coach for literally a top 5, top 10, top 1 ranked team in the country. Lehigh is amazing. And she's the head varsity coach there, and she's 25 years old almost. Those are the people that I really look up to and that have taught me so much, and I learned so much from them in the Greece trip. I'm super excited for what's to come with that. Hopefully it does happen. I'm praying for it, and we'll see if it happens. But if it does, I know the one thing I'm going to do, I might not get the best content. Maybe my computer battery dies. Maybe I don't make the best video and the best mixtape or the best social media post. I don't have Wi-Fi in the right spots, and I don't do a great job of that. We don't live stream the games. That doesn't happen, that's fine. If we lose a lot, if we go 0-5, 0-6, that's okay. If I help a kid on that trip break out of their shell and enjoy it more than they would have otherwise, I did my job.
Well, could you tell us how has COVID affected your podcast? How has it affected your travels or to other areas? How has it affected basketball in general?
words can't even describe the impact it's had. But the crazy thing is that COVID hasn't impacted the podcast at all, because the podcast hasn't seen a world where COVID wasn't a thing. The podcast was born out of COVID. It was born in June 2020, and the pandemic started in March. 3 months of me thinking, I'm going to do it, and finally in June saying, no matter what, it's June 21st, my birthday, the podcast is going to be posted by then, no matter what. No matter what, I'm posting the episode. Even if it's the worst episode in the world, I'm posting a podcast on June 21st. I'm starting it. And that was something, that was a goal of mine. But really, the pandemic changed everything, because, I'm realizing now that I'm back in person. I used to be in this room or be in this house 24/7 and really pump out episodes and send out emails and do all this stuff. Now I'm at MSG from 9 o'clock in the morning till 2:30. Then in that half hour, I run over or take a train over to Xavier for our 3 o'clock practice. I'm there until 4:30 at least, if not 6, if we have a game or if I'm staying for the freshman or JV levels. And I'm doing shows at 9, 10 o'clock at night, and the neighbors don't like that one too much, but it has to get done. Gen Z Hoops, the show must go on. Now that I'm in person, it's so much harder to do this, and I love it so much that it still gets done. Maybe a little bit later, so apologies to the guests that have experienced any delays or anything like that. First off, no matter what, in terms of how I do get this done during COVID, I've met my best friends through this podcast or through putting out this content. I gotta shout out Chow. Chow has been so invaluable to this show. This show cannot go on without him. Chow is one of our editors over in Brazil. He does an amazing job. I edited up the show completely from all Big Fellas Basketball. Chow joined us early last year when Gen Z first started, and he has made my life possible. He's literally made this whole thing possible by editing our episodes for us. And I'm so thankful for him. He's made a lot of the intros, the outros. Chow has done a lot of the graphics for social media. Chow is the man. Chow, I appreciate you, Chow. I don't know what I would do without you. I'm gonna keep on saying your name so everyone can stick that Chow is responsible for all the great content we put out. So thank you, Chow. In terms of, COVID, how has that changed me or the show? If it wasn't for COVID, I wouldn't know Nima. I wouldn't know Ananya. I wouldn't know my friend Chris. I wouldn't know all these guests. Like, COVID not only kept me home, but it kept everyone else home. And obviously there's a huge negative to COVID, but the positive was it enabled me to meet people that didn't live in Astoria, Queens, that didn't live in New York City. I only knew people from New York, and if you were from Connecticut or from Jersey, you were weird, because why would I know someone from either of those two places? Even though they border New York, right? They're so far away, they're a whole different way of life. Compare that to California or Houston, and where I met some of my best friends. Like, that's what's really stood out to me, and that's what COVID's allowed me to do. It's made me do a lot more FaceTime, so someone like Jesse K, who I used to see every day at Stevens, we both transferred school since then, and now I see him strictly on FaceTime because he's up at Cornell in Ithaca, and I'm, of course, he's still here in the city, but that's changed a lot. It's something that I've had to learn to adapt to, but we persevered. It's very easy to say, oh, well, I had this job opportunity lined up, but because of COVID, I lost out on it, and that's why I'm in the position I am, and oh, woe is me. And of course, some people have it much worse than I do. But at the end of the day, put your best effort in, get creative, and make something happen. And I could have easily been in a position where I could have said, oh, wow, if it wasn't for COVID, I would have done this with the NBA. With the NBA that I was taught, I had the internship interview. March 6, 2020, I was in the NBA offices in Secaucus. And then, 5 days later, the whole season shuts down and everything's in flux. And instead of getting an internship that summer, I was at home. But I could have easily just stayed at home and told everyone that I saw, well, I should be at the NBA right now, but if because of COVID, I'm not. Instead, we're not even talking about what I'm not doing or what I could be doing, what I am, because what I am doing was really interesting. I was starting this podcast and I was doing this stuff and going full force into it. And we didn't even mention X2 Performance and Boardroom, which were the internships I did last year before MSG that were very impactful with Kawhi Leonard's Energy and Company and Kevin Durant's Media Company. But it's things like that and putting myself out there and doing as much as I possibly could, getting my referee certification. I know you're laughing.
There's just so much I can't keep track.
But
you know what, Yanni, I watched you grow, and I've watched you grow from a timid young man, because I remember when you were just 8 years old, your mother and I took you and your sister to an audition.
Oh man, this is a good story.
An audition to have commercials, and when they interviewed you, you just froze and just stared at them. Your sister was the one who was very animated. You couldn't get 2 words out of your mouth, so you went from that to getting in front of a camera. And I realized that when I went with you to the Garden to one of the basketball games and introduced yourself to Kobe Allman. I was kind of shocked when I saw that. You're going after and you're pursuing what you want to do. And it's very gratifying as a father to watch that. And I could see the change in personalities. You sit next to somebody, just the last time we went to the Garden for a game, you sat next to a complete stranger and you struck up an entire conversation with them and exchanged cards with them. You meet people at the airport and you're standing online and you strike up conversations with them. That's something that I've noticed a big difference in you from the time that you were a young boy until becoming a young man now. So I'm very happy to see that, and I see that you're pursuing your dream, and I'll be there every step of the way to support you in doing that. So I'm very happy to see that you're pursuing your dream.
I had a pretty good feeling there weren't going to be tears in this show, but I think if you're pretty close to it now, so maybe this is the best time for us to wrap this up before you start really bawling your eyes out.
All right, I'm just very happy that this is your last episode for the year 2021, and that I was your guest on the show.
Thank you, Dave.
And I want to wish everyone out there a happy New Year, and I want to wish you a wonderful New Year, Yanni, and I hope everything keeps going forward with you.
Thanks, Dad.
All right, happy New Year, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Gen Z Hoops. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe on Instagram, LinkedIn, and all major social media platforms at Gen Z Hoops. You can tune in and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and every other podcast platform on the planet. Get ready for the next episode.